We needed the money, my brother texted, but he had no clue it was a $9.3 million asset. But before I share my story, please take a minute of your precious time to support our channel. Your support and love keeps us going. I stared at the text on my phone long enough for the screen to dim, then wake again under my thumb. My brother, Jasper Cole, hadn't asked me anything. He'd announced it. He'd sold my building. Moved your deadweight property for $260,000. Family needed the cash more than you. No question mark. No request. Just the certainty of a man who thought he had the right to liquidate what he didn't own. I set the phone face down and forced my attention back to the zoning maps spread across the conference table. We were at a public session with the Harbor City Planning Commission, debating a mixed-use overlay near the waterfront. While one of the commissioners asked about setbacks, the word sold kept crashing through my head like a wave. The deadweight property Jasper meant was a 6-story brick anchor on Baycrest Avenue I'd bought 7 years ago, when the block was still more rumor than reality. The last independent valuation had placed it at $9.3 million. The ground floor held 3 thriving storefronts. Floors 2 through 4 were leased as premium offices. The top 2 floors were high-ceiling lofts with river views. On a slow month, the building produced $155,000 in rent. Jasper wouldn't know any of that. Neither would the rest of them. To my family, I was still Naomi Pierce, the 31-year-old who wasted her 20s managing other people's buildings. The one who didn't follow Jasper into law school. The one who didn't marry into money like our sister Serena Holt. The one who lived in a tiny place instead of a cul-de-sac palace. They had no idea I owned 21 properties scattered across Harbor City and beyond. That my property manager job had been managing my own portfolio for the last 5 years. That my so-called tiny place was a sky-level duplex I owned outright. I learned early my family measured success by visibility. Jasper's framed degree and mahogany desk, Serena's gated address and club brunches, leased European cars, careful staging for holiday photos. My success was quieter. Boots on cracked sidewalks, spreadsheets at midnight, choosing locations by foot traffic and fractured curbs, not press releases. There is no graduation ceremony for becoming financially free. No announcement card for buying your time back. When the meeting adjourned, I checked my phone. 3 more texts from Jasper. Already deposited the check. Don't start. Firm needed capital. You should thank me. By firm, he meant the Cole and Archer Law Group, which he'd opened 20 months ago with a large infusion from our father. It bled cash steadily because Jasper spent more on image, corner office, walnut panels, a receptionist in designer suits, than on actually building a client base. I didn't reply. I called my attorney. Kian Rivers answered on the second ring. Naomi, what's wrong? My brother just sold one of my properties without consent. The Baycrest building downtown. Silence. Paper rustled. The 9.3 property? He sold it for how much? He claims $260,000. Another beat. That's not a sale. That's fraud. Forgery if he touched your signature. Potentially multiple felonies. I know. I'm not asking whether we should act. I'm telling you to start. Contact the buyer. Notify the title company. File to unwind. And report the fraudulent transfer. Understood. I'll loop in the police and likely the DA's office, given the size. Sit tight while I open files. Do what you need to do. I drove to my parents' place for the weekly non-negotiable Tuesday dinner, pot roast, thick smiles, and the performance of harmony. Jasper's matte black coupe already hogged 2 spots in the driveway. Serena's husband Dorian had lined up his spotless electric sedan at the curb like a museum piece. Inside, the smell of roasting meat and rosemary floated over cable news murmuring from the den. Mama wore an apron that read Queen of the Kitchen in curly script. Dad squinted at a ticker he only half understood. Naomi. Mama wiped her hands and hurried over. Jasper told us the wonderful news. Did he? He finally unloaded that old building of yours. $260,000. Can you imagine for that thing? She grinned, already believing the story. He said you've been trying to sell it for years. I haven't been trying to sell anything, I said. Where's Jasper? In the dining room, baby. They're celebrating. I stepped into the dining room. Jasper had installed himself at the head of the table. Dad's chair, swirling amber in one of Dad's special occasions only glasses. Serena and Dorian faced each other, crystal in hand, the picture of composure. There she is, Jasper said, standing with a grin that ran too wide. You don't have to thank me. Families look out for each other. Do they? I said. When Bayview Capital Partners told me they were sniffing around the corridor, I thought of your building immediately, he continued, throwing an arm over the chair back. Figured I'd help you offload it before the new height cap kills your yield. Serena leaned forward, sympathetic. It's generous, Naomi. That place has been sitting there forever. Has it? I said, taking a seat. I mean, you manage it, she added, glancing at Jasper. But you don't own it, right? You were holding it for someone. Dorian opened his mouth. He'd always been the one person at these dinners who looked mildly uncomfortable with mythology, but Jasper cut him off. Point is, Bayview came in low at $210, but I worked them to $260, Jasper declared. You're welcome. Dad arrived with his own pour. That's my boy. Born negotiator. Mama followed, beaming. Naomi, baby, what will you do with all that money? You could finally get a real house. Jasper leaned back, satisfied. About the funds, I already deposited the check. The room stilled. Serena blinked. You what? Into the firm account, Jasper said, shrugging. Naomi knows we needed capital. We're in a growth phase. Once we're profitable, I'll pay her back with interest. Dad nodded, pleased. Smart. Keep it in the family. Mama's smile faltered. Jasper, you should have asked your sister first. Why? He turned to me, confident. It's an investment in us. 6 months, maybe a year, we're roaring. You'll have your principal back, and then some. I studied him. At 36, Jasper still wore the armor of someone who'd never been allowed to fail hard. Dad had covered undergrad, covered law school, bankrolled the firm to the tune of $520,000. Every stumble had landed on a cushion with our surnames stitched in gold. Jasper, I said evenly, how did you sell my building? I told you, Bayview wants that block. No, I said. How did you execute the transfer? Paperwork. Deed. He flicked a hand. Details. I'm a lawyer, Naomi. I know real estate deals. So you forged my signature. The air thinned. I didn't forge anything, he said, but a notch of certainty slipped from his voice. I had power of attorney. No, you don't. Dad gave me POA for family properties years ago. For his properties, I said, turning to Dad. Did you? Dad shifted. Well, yes. For mine. Not. The Baycrest deed lists me, I said. I signed the all-cash purchase in spring 2018 for $2.7 million. No mortgage. Would you like to see the recorded instrument? Serena gasped. 2.7? From where? Jasper scoffed. Impossible. You were making what, $52 a year tops as a manager. I made $52,000 working for someone else, I said. Then I started working for myself. Mama sank into a chair. Naomi, sweetheart, are you feeling faint? I own 21 properties, I said. Baycrest is valued at $9.3 million and nets $155,000 in rent every month. I haven't had a traditional job in 5 years because I built something that pays me whether or not you can see it. Silence wrapped the table. Jasper laughed, brittle. If you were sitting on millions, we'd know. Would you? I asked. You measure money by square footage you can tour. I measure it by cash flow that never has to brag. Dad set down his glass, jaw tight. If this is a joke. My phone rang. I stood and stepped into the kitchen to answer. Talk to me, Kian. We've got movement, he said. Transfer went through Arrow Title and Escrow. Notorious for looking the other way. But they did check a packet. A very official-looking POA in your name and a copy of the deed. Both forgeries, almost certainly. Arrow is already cooperating. They see their license on the line. The buyer, Bayview, is legitimate and furious. They're threatening civil actions across the board. And the $260,000? Deposit hit your brother's firm account this morning. Before that, the account balanced at $53,000. He was already underwater. We're moving to freeze. Do it. And Naomi, this meets the threshold for felony charges. Fraud. Forgery. Grand theft. The DA will take an interest. Good, I said and hung up. When I returned, everyone sat exactly where I left them, but the room had shifted. Chairs were the same. People were not. That was my attorney, I said calmly, reclaiming my seat. He's filed the criminal report. Civil action is pending. The title company has turned over copies of the forged documents. The buyer's counsel is drafting demands. Jasper shot to his feet. You're bluffing. No. I'm tired. Serena's voice trembled. He's your brother. He's also an adult who just stole from me, I said. And he did it because he believed I had nothing worth protecting. Dad's face modeled. This family doesn't air business in public. We settle at this table. You want to settle? I asked. Then here's my offer. Jasper returns the $260,000 immediately and pays fair market value, $9.3 million, for the building. Otherwise, the transfer is voided and the charges proceed. Jasper laughed, wild at the edges. I don't have $9.3 million. Then you shouldn't have sold my building. Mama pressed her palms together, eyes wet. Naomi, please, think about us. I said. For the first time, I am. Jasper's phone lit the table like a warning flare. He stared at the screen, then at me, and answered with a swallow. Jasper Cole speaking. I couldn't hear the other voice, but I watched confidence drain from his face. His eyes flicked to the side, then up, then to me again, smaller each time. Yes, this is Jasper. Representative? For whom? A pause. I was told. She's my sister. I know. I did not need her consent under. Another long pause, the kind that breaks a man into pieces. 9.3 what? No, that valuation can't. It's just an old. He stopped listening, the glass shaking lightly in his hand. He lowered the phone slowly, as if it had gained weight. Bayview's counsel, he said. They're filing for fraudulent representation and demanding the $260,000 back immediately, plus damages. They say the building's worth $9.3 million, I finished. He couldn't meet my eyes. Serena's phone buzzed next. She glanced down, then clapped a hand to her mouth. Oh my God, Jasper, you're trending. What? He lurched toward her. She held the screen so we could all see the post from Bayview Capital Partners' corporate account. Local attorney sells $9.3 million asset without owner's authorization. Transaction under dispute. The repost count rolled upward in real time. Metro Ledger and Legal Chronicle both picked it up. Serena said, scrolling. They're calling it the biggest title mess of the year. Dad planted his hands on the table like he could hold the room steady. We can fix this. We'll bring in heavier counsel. We'll. With what money? I asked, keeping my voice even. Jasper's firm was at $53,000 before he parked the stolen $260,000 there this morning. Dad's jaw clicked. He hated numbers that didn't bend. You refinanced this house once to fund his launch, I added. And you're carrying the note. Serena. I turned to her, gentle but direct. Did you and Dorian co-sign the office lease? Her face paled. How do you even know that? I make it my business to know what can fall on the people I love. We are not your investments, Jasper snapped, color rushing back in the wrong direction. We're your family. Then why did you steal from me? I asked. I didn't steal. I was helping. The firm just needs time to. It's been failing since month 3, I said. You have 2 active clients. Your burn rate could light a stadium. I didn't add the rest. Rent on a showpiece suite, premium retainer he couldn't afford, invoices stacked under a paperweight of denial. He knew. Mama stood, tears threatening. Naomi, please. He made a mistake. He's your brother. He made choices, I said. All of them in ink. My phone rang again. I stepped away, answered. Kian. We've secured a temporary freeze on the firm's account, he said. The DA's intake unit wants statements tonight. Also, the Bar Association has been alerted. Ethics investigation already open. Thank you. Naomi, he added quietly. This will move fast. I'm ready. I returned to the dining room. The silence was a living thing. The title company has handed over the forged POA and the falsified deed copy, I said, sitting. The buyer is moving to unwind and recover. The state is looking at charges. Jasper's chair scraped back. You'll burn me down over a bookkeeping error? This isn't bookkeeping, I said. It's criminal. Dad pointed at the table like it was a bench, and he was the judge. Enough. We handle this here. We are not a spectacle. You made it a spectacle the minute you raised a son who thought he could sign my name, I said. But I'll give you the same offer again, so it's clear. Return the $260,000 immediately and remit $9.3 million, fair market value, or the deal dies and the charges live. Jasper laughed, a paper-thin sound. I don't have $9 million. Then you never had a deal. The doorbell rang. We froze. Dad went to the foyer. Low voices. The murmur of protocol. Then the officers stepped into the dining room. 2 black officers in navy, posture precise, eyes steady. Mr. Jasper Cole, the taller one said. Jasper stood as if the floor had tilted. Yes. You're under arrest on probable cause for fraud, forgery, and grand theft relating to an unlawful property transfer. You have the right to remain silent. Mama cried out, pleading. Serena's hand flew to her chest. Dad sputtered about misunderstandings and family privacy. Jasper looked at me as they cuffed him. Beneath the panic, I saw something honest for the first time in years. Recognition. I'm your brother, he said, almost a whisper. I know, I said. And that's what makes the choice you made unforgivable. They let him out. The house, suddenly too bright, filled with the sound of Mama's sobs and Serena's half-formed accusations. I stood, feeling every hour I had ever worked in shoes that pinched and weather that bit, every ledger I had ever balanced in the quiet. The knock had ended the performance. The truth had the room now. The house had dissolved into chaos the second the police car lights flashed blue against the curtains. Mama collapsed into a chair, sobbing, whispering prayers under her breath. Dad paced with his phone glued to his ear, already calling every contact he thought could make things go away. Serena kept oscillating between glaring at me and wringing her hands, while Dorian lingered at the edge, quiet, calculating. He finally pulled me aside into the kitchen. His voice was low, deliberate. Naomi, this is messy, but I need to ask something straight. Serena and I co-signed Jasper's office lease. If his firm collapses, that rent obligation falls to us, doesn't it? Yes. That's $8,000 a month for the next 3 years. His shoulders sank. We can't absorb that on top of our mortgage and the kids' school. He looked at me carefully. You really do own 21 properties? Yes. And you've listened to us worry about bills for years without ever saying, would you have believed me if I had? He paused. Probably not. Then, softer. Is there anything you can do about the lease? The building he rented from? I asked. Who do you think owns it? Dorian's eyes widened. No. Yes. And I can terminate his lease for cause, given the felony charges. That would remove your liability. Why would you do that after what he did to you? Because you didn't steal from me. And because Serena's already carrying enough with the fallout of being married to his reputation. She doesn't need financial ruin stapled on top. For a moment, Dorian just studied me. Respect flickered across his face, the kind that comes when people realize the quiet one has been holding the strings all along. That night, when I finally made it back to my duplex penthouse, Kian called with an update. Jasper made bail. $110,000. Where'd it come from? Your father refinanced his house again. That place must be mortgaged nearly triple its value by now. I exhaled. Figures. Here's the preliminary fallout, Kian continued. Bayview is demanding restitution of the full $9.3 million plus damages. Arrow titles staring at bankruptcy. Their insurance won't cover fraud. The bar moved fast. Jasper's license is suspended pending the ethics case. His 2 remaining clients already jumped ship. The office is dead. I rubbed my temple. Vendors? 16 have filed claims so far. Roughly $370,000 in unpaid bills, IT support, janitorial, print services. He was paying for glass conference tables and premium liquor, but stiffed the people who kept his lights on. That sounds like him, I said. One more thing. The story's gone national. Financial Herald and Urban Ledger picked it up. They're calling it Silicon Valley-style fraud in Harbor City real estate. You're listed as the unnamed victim, though your name isn't public. Yet. I stood by my floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the skyline glow. 4 of those towers, the ones lit like sentinels against the night, were mine. Quiet acquisitions, steady cash flow, nothing flashy. Naomi, Kian said gently, your brother's career is over. His reputation is scorched. He could face prison. Are you at peace with that? I let the silence stretch. Looking down at the streets, I had walked for years in shoes scuffed from work my family never saw. I'm not happy about it, I said finally. But yes, I'm at peace. Because he didn't just steal money, Kian. He stole because he believed I had nothing worth stealing, that I was too small to matter. I pressed my hand against the glass, feeling the hum of the city below. And now, I whispered, they all know better. The next morning my phone buzzed nonstop before sunrise. By the time I finished my first cup of coffee, I had 14 texts and 8 voicemails, all from cousins, uncles, distant relatives who hadn't called in years. Each one wrapped in polite concern but circling the same question. Was I really sitting on millions? The only message I answered was Serena's. Naomi, I'm sorry. For assuming. For judging. For not standing up for you when I should have. I know it doesn't erase anything, but I wanted you to know. I typed back. Thank you. That means something. 3 weeks later, Jasper stood in court and pled guilty. Fraud. Forgery. Theft. The DA offered him a deal. 5 years probation. Full restitution to Bayview. Permanent disbarment. Trial meant prison, so he took the deal. 2 months later came the restitution hearing. Jasper couldn't pay. Dad couldn't either. The house was already mortgaged past air. Serena and Dorian had nothing left to offer. Bayview pressed hard. Immediate repayment or jail despite the plea bargain. The night before the hearing, Dad called me. His voice was thinner than I'd ever heard it. Naomi, I'm begging you. As your father, help him. Please. Help him how? Pay the restitution. You have the money. You could end this. No. He's your brother. How can you be so heartless? He stole from me. He forged my name. He risked everything I built because he thought I was nobody. You know we never thought. You did. I cut him off. Every holiday, every dinner, every conversation. Jasper the promising attorney. Serena the polished wife. And me, poor Naomi, with her little job, her little apartment, going nowhere. Silence crackled over the line. I worked for every building, every dollar, every brick, I said. Alone. Because none of you believed I could. And the first chance Jasper got, he proved it by stealing from me without hesitation. Because in his mind, I didn't matter. If you pay, he won't go to jail. If I pay, he learns nothing. I hung up. At the hearing, the judge's order came down sharp. Jasper owed $9.3 million in restitution, payable at $2,700 per month. At that rate, it would take him over 280 years to clear the debt. He also lost his law license permanently, his office lease, his car, and whatever remained of his name. At 36 years old, my brother was starting over with a felony record and no compass. 6 months later, word reached me that Jasper had landed an entry-level job with a small property management company. $44,000 a year. Checking boilers, collecting rent for other people's buildings. Mama called, her voice heavy with bitterness. Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted? Your brother working beneath his worth, barely surviving. I worked that exact job for years, I reminded her. None of you noticed then. Why is it tragic now? That was different. How? She didn't answer. A year later, Serena invited me to lunch. We sat at a cafe 2 blocks from one of my buildings. She stirred her coffee slowly, eyes soft. Jasper's different now. Humbled. He's decent at the job. He asks about you sometimes. Wonders if you'll ever forgive him. I don't know, I said. You know what's funny, she murmured. I always thought you were the one who needed guidance. Turns out, you were the only one who figured it out. I had motivation, I said quietly. I wanted to prove I was worth something. She gave a small, sad smile. And you did. For the first time in years, we talked, really talked, about her kids, her life, not money. It was the most honest conversation we'd ever had. And for once, she didn't ask about my portfolio. She just asked about me. 2 years after the conviction, I was eating breakfast by my window when my phone rang. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Naomi, it's Jasper. I almost hung up. Almost. What do you want? I'm not asking for anything, he said quickly. His voice was quieter than I remembered, stripped of bravado. I just wanted to tell you something. I'm leading a training session next week for new property managers, teaching them how to spot opportunities, how to grow. And I realized everything I know I learned from watching you. From me? Yeah. Back when we were kids, you'd talk about neighborhoods and buildings and potential. I thought you were boring. He gave a bitter laugh. Turns out you were brilliant. And I was too arrogant to see it. I said nothing. I'm not asking you to forgive me, he continued. I don't deserve that. I just wanted you to know. I see it now. What you built. Who you are. And I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. Sorry I had to lose everything to understand what you were showing me all along. Jasper. That's all. That's all I wanted to say. Take care of yourself, Naomi. He hung up. I set the phone down and sat in the quiet, staring out at the skyline. Towers I owned blinked in the morning light. Blocks I'd bet on years ago buzzed with energy. Every brick was a chapter of my story, built without their belief, but with my persistence. My family had dismissed me because I didn't flaunt what I had. They thought I was small, unimportant, easy to dismiss. They thought they could take from me without consequence. They were wrong. Now they all knew. The quiet one had always been the strongest. And I didn't need their recognition to prove it. The city itself was proof. And that was the moment the truth finally settled in. They had underestimated me for years, looked straight through me, assuming I had nothing worth protecting. But I built everything they thought I lacked, and I did it without their approval. Sometimes silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. And when the time comes, the quiet ones don't just survive, they own the table. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on your notifications so you never miss the next one. Drop a comment below. Have you ever been underestimated, only to prove everyone wrong? We'd love to hear your story.